Happy Wednesday and welcome back for another exciting episode of the Rocketeer Minute, where each and every day, Monday through Friday, we go over 1 minute of the greatest adventure movie that Walt Disney's ever made, the 1991 Joe Johnston-directed feature, The Rocketeer. I'm one of your hosts, Jim O'Kane of TVDads.com.
And I'm Hal Bryan, an airplane nerd from the Experimental Aircraft Association here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And Jim, if I listen closely, I think I hear it.
There it is.
You're listening to a special Billy Campbell episode on the Rocketeer Minute. Ladies and gentlemen, Billy Campbell.
Oh, it's just endlessly mortifying, that introduction.
Life is always better with a fanfare.
And now, Billy Campbell.
We keep threatening we can make it bigger.
Yeah.
We don't accept feedback very, very well or clearly. We're not very bright around here.
You don't.
That baseball career never panned out, so this is, you got to have somebody introduce you, but that works out great. Well, yes, Billy, thanks so much for being on again with the show, and we are in the exciting part. This is the birth of the Rocketeer here, where it looks like it's a breech berth because your head's coming through the back of the plane.
That's right.
But poor Malcolm has a helmet between his legs, and there's a guy asking him if he's okay. Now, that initial second, is that you or is that someone else?
With my head up by the stick, that's me.
That is you. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And but of course, any of the real stunt work up in the sky are the stunt puppies. And this is one of the great things about this film. There's actually real stunt work going on in the sky. There's a real stuntman on the wing of a real stunt plane sliding off and falling. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it's amazing. I just, and trying, like, you try to wrap your head around it now, it's 25 plus years later, and thinking all this would be done blue screen and nobody would be even thinking about, oh, isn't that amazing? But you're seeing a guy with, that's dressed up like the Rocketeer with a parachute underneath all that he has to clear out of the way to make sure that he will survive landing. And it's not that high up.
Right. And he's actually wearing, that stuntman who slides off the edge there is actually wearing 2 parachutes. So he's even got a backup chute. And it's an amazing combination of setups for this. If you look at, about second 16, when the Rocketeer is sliding off the end of the wing, you can actually see there's a track that he's been riding, because his arms are sort of tucked in because there's so many rigging wires on the Standard. So this is him really sliding off this airplane. But elsewhere in this minute, when he goes off the back of the airplane, not to get ahead of ourselves, but when he goes off the back of the airplane, that's a mock-up of the Standard's tail section that's attached to the Bell helicopter. And then, Billy, I was curious if you were around for any of this, because when there's close-ups of around second 6 and 7, stuff like that, these close-up shots, there's a mock-up of Miss Mabel, the Standard J1, on gimbals on the sort of at the edge of a cliff, basically, to give it that look. So, would you have been there for any of those shots for these close-ups? I mean, you've got the helmet on, so.
Yeah, I think I was there. I was definitely there for some of the close-ups on the wing. And for the ones with the stunt guy actually sliding off the wing, I was right there, thousands and thousands of feet below.
Safe and sound.
Yes. That's
just amazing, because that gimbal stuff with the mountains in the background, again, that we were just talking about, the close-ups where it's you, it's completely convincing to me.
Yeah. And they really were, they were considering to do all of the stuff of me and the GB and all that the same way. But they thought, let's go flying. And of course it paid off.
Oh, absolutely.
Big time, yeah. It's interesting to see, if you watch carefully, there is a difference in the helmets. The helmet that that Billy's wearing in it has it's a Standard Hero helmet. But on the fellow that's falling off the side, the eye shape is a little bit different. And if you look carefully, there's it looks like kind of a flip-up welder's mask on the front. And that would come loose, that he could flip the whole thing up off of him so that it wasn't blocking his view when he was actually in the parachute part of this trip. But still, it's on, it's briefly, you actually have to watch the movie like we're watching the movie a frame at a time.
Yes.
That's right.
Picking fleas, as
Yeah.
Billy has said.
Yeah, and just imagine trying to get all that out of the way. And you have an estimate on the altitude there? How high up would you say that is?
It's tough to say with the terrain back there and everything else, and again trying to differentiate between what's the sort of the gimbal shots against the cliff versus the real thing. But when we see him fall off and is heading toward the ground, that's I'm going to call that above the ground there, probably 2,500 feet, something like that. So not all that high, maybe 3,000 feet. It's again sort of tough to judge without that much to sort of to measure against. And of course, with so much tall terrain around, this is going to be much higher than that above sea level. But
yeah, I assume that as I am not an experienced pilot, but you are. I'm assuming that you can eyeball altitude pretty much. You know how big a tree is and things like that, and you can figure out how many thousands you are.
But you can usually guess pretty well. Although the funny thing for me, one of the more challenging parts for me about learning to fly, and I still don't consider myself great at it, is actually looking down at the ground and then judging distance. Like a lot of times flying into some airport, they they want you to call us. You call them up when you're 10 miles away, and then they say call us again when you're 2 miles away, when you're close enough that we care more about you. And I always get this sort of feeling of looking down and I'm measuring because I'm convinced that somebody in the control tower has the radar up or a map and they've got a ruler. And I said, we said 2 miles. This is 2.1, hand in your license, buddy. I don't know why I get sort of hung up on it. Yeah. So altitude's generally easier, but anyway.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine who had a problem with altitude. She was into parachuting and she would be doing all this, free falling, skydiving and stuff. She had a really bad problem with the last 100 or 200 feet about how far away she was, and she'd always dump the parachute. But one time she thought she was coming up on the ground, and she was actually about 100 feet in the air, and she had mistaken the trees for bushes. So,
oh, geez.
Yeah,
it happens. I do. I think as I might have told you, I do some hang gliding.
Yeah,
and it's the same. It's the same sort of thing. Thinking that you're closer to the ground than you are, and then you go and do something silly like bleed off your speed and then dive nose first
right.
into the sticks, and it's really a thing that they stress to you, as you're making a landing. Of course, when you're very first making landings, you've got the trainer wheels on the crossbar, so that you can land just on your stomach. And in fact, you should land on your stomach the first several times, but they're like, constantly reminding you, keep the airspeed up because you're not as close to the ground as you think you are. And keep your airspeed up right till the end. Don't even worry about flaring to set down. Just don't let the airspeed go away.
It's funny you mentioned that. When I was getting checked out in the de Havilland Tiger Moth, an open cockpit biplane, sort of similar to the standard, like Miss Mabel here, but a bit smaller. The first several times I flew, I was always setting up for these beautiful, perfect 3-point landings about 8 feet in the air. And so you set up, you flare, you're rounding out, just like I said, the airspeed's bleeding off, just the same as you're talking about. And then, bam, the ground rises up to smite you. And the guy, my buddy Glenn, who was giving me the checkout at the time, and there's a great picture of him in the cockpit of a big yellow biplane like this with a guy in a Rocketeer costume right on the wing. They're on the ground, but it's a great shot. But he was always telling me, keep your nose down, keep your nose down, keep your nose down. And then once, this was out in Brampton, Ontario. So you maybe know that area, Billy. But coming in, we're landing, and I said, I am going to keep this nose down no matter what. I don't care what happens. And then sure enough, I just drove this poor airplane, straight into the runway. And then we bounced up 30 feet. Then we came back down. And then we bounced up about 35 feet. And it was quite a circus. But after that, every landing, I thought, okay, well, I know where the ground is now.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a scene about 38 seconds in where the Rocketeer goes off the tail.
Right.
And that's the Waco that we're talking about there? Is that?
No, that's mounted off a helicopter. Surprisingly.
Oh, okay.
Which So,
Wow.
and I think it's got to be suspended underneath somehow. I don't know how else we'd be seeing it sort of unobstructed. But that's a mock-up of the Standard, and you see there's the lead up shot. There's just that's got to be the mock-up on the gimbal, just sliding back. But then the actual fall there was apparently, and I dug this out of Cinefex magazine from the era, but that was apparently a half fuselage suspended, mounted off of the Bell 206 that Craig Hosking would be flying.
Wow, I'm just amazed at the direction of the the mineral oil smoke going off the back there, that it wouldn't be blown all asunder from the rotor blades.
Yeah, there's got to be some pretty powerful, something pretty powerfully driving it straight back, because that just it shouldn't be possible, but that's just not something you'd want to try to do on the real Standard.
Yeah, and then we get the the beautiful scene where you have the live action, the fella falling with the parachute, and then it goes into the ILM cloud and comes out the other side, the maquette with all that slow stop motion thing. Billy, when you were doing this movie, did you get any interaction with ILM while they were building these things?
Yeah, let's see, we went up to ILM. We had a day there. I think we did the single green screen of the film, or the single one I was involved in, and Jennifer, was us hanging off of the ladder of the Hughes. What do you call that?
Yeah, the auto gyro.
The auto gyro.
Yeah, and with the Zeppelin in flames beneath us. That was up at ILM, as I recall. If I recall correctly, they would not have been building the scale model of the Zeppelin, would they? That was in
Santa Maria. I think that was. And I think that was Disney that was doing the full size one.
No, I mean I'm talking about the scale model of the entire Zeppelin, not the section.
Actually, that was another group within ILM. We are going to have one of the women who worked on that particular model in a later minute.
Okay, so maybe we saw that up in San Francisco as well, at ILM. I have a clear memory of seeing the model. I just wasn't so clear on which state I was in.
Okay. That must have been a pretty big green screen that you were working on for the. We're getting a little bit ahead in the movie, but the Zeppelin ladder, I would think, have a lot of green.
There was a big green sort of mattress underneath us, and then they hung us off a ladder and sort of pushed us out in the center of the green, as I recall.
Wow.
And it was pretty painful. We had these, of course, these sort of harnesses that we were wearing. I think because
the Peter Pan rig,
Peter Pan rig, or what have you, and mine was just too small in various extremely uncomfortable places.
So I guess the fella flying up here in the background is that's landing there is just it's an ILM tech that's doing that, landing next to Malcolm in second 46, and so
because that's pretty clearly obviously composited in, even though I think that shot is of that mock-up on the gimbal with Eddie Jones there in the front. It's interesting that they show him flying from the front cockpit. Which it makes a certain amount of sense that even for the longer shots, it would presumably be either a safety pilot or a stunt performer in the clown makeup. So I don't know that Eddie Jones
no.
would have gone up or anything.
No.
But because this is an airplane you would fly, you probably couldn't. Well, you maybe could fly from the front cockpit solo, but for weight and balance standpoint and visibility and everything, you'd be flying from the rear cockpit. So anytime we see the airplane actually flying and only see one person up front, then it's probably Chuck Wentworth who's just crouched down, hiding in the rear cockpit, trying to stay out of frame.
On the way to the ground,
which is a fun way to try to fly an airplane. But
IFR.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things that I'd wondered about was the we had talked about this in a previous minute on getting dressed as the Rocketeer. Billy, when you had to put all that stuff on, we were looking at all the gear. You had to put on, like, first you had a zip up jacket, then over that there was like the lederhosen thing that was holding on to the rocket harness, and then you had the big bib to button up too.
Yeah,
So
it's always a cheat. If you notice, there's never any moment when I'm wearing the whole getup that you see me put the whole getup on.
yeah,
It's impossible. It would have taken, a good 8.5 minutes to get the whole rig on.
yeah.
And that's
Just
going at
buttoning
that's
everything
going at
and-
top speed.
Well, we were talking even just recently, even just the fact that the straps for the rocket harness go through the epaulets, and whether those were snaps, if those were buttons, that's going to take you forever. You're not exactly Clark Kent running into a phone booth at this point
No.
to change quickly.
No.
Wow.
Sort of apropos of very little as we skip around. There's at about second 19, you've got the whole crowd just jumping to their feet to look up and see this spectacle of the Rocketeer flying around. And it always makes me laugh because there's a woman right in the foreground who I like to pretend is Meryl Streep, who probably was not actually in this movie.
No, I don't think
But she doesn't get up. And I think she's looking up, but you've seen one flying man, you've seen them all, I guess. It's not really worth standing up
No,
for.
I don't think I'll stand for that.
Exactly. Call me when you've got something interesting.
Yes.
I would love to know what the shooting ratio was for this, because I would imagine there must have been just a multitude of shots where it didn't quite come out right, and they had to have somebody else fall off the plane again, and
Yeah, that would be interesting to know.
this must have been the thickest part of it. Although I would assume that Dave Stevens had provided a lot of storyboard on this just from a frame by frame basis. It all looks like you're just following. They had to shoot this scene, shoot this scene, shoot this scene. So it probably limited what needed to be done. But still, just it's mind-boggling to think about the non-CGI version of this.
Yeah, I think I saw sort of the storyboard Bible once, and it was pretty impressive. It was pretty impressive. I really, really wanted to take it home and just to read it like a graphic novel.
And then you snuck it off at the end of the picture, and you'd like for us to see it.
Oh, I wish.
Oh, well,
Waiting
I
for
wish.
the
Somewhere. Well,
waiting for the magic reveal here.
maybe Disney will get the idea someday, and they'll say, gee, maybe we could have the 30th anniversary, and it's not that far away. They could put it a 30th anniversary edition.
We'll see.
In
I don't
4K.
I think they'd rather forget about this movie entirely.
If it's as hard for me to believe that we can at least see the 30th anniversary from here, Billy, that's got to feel strange for you. That can't possibly feel like it's been 26 years at this point, so it can't possibly feel that long, does it?
No, it doesn't really feel that long. I have such distinct memories of it, or at any rate, they feel distinct. And I still have friends from then, and yeah, it's difficult sometimes for me to think that it was that long ago. It really is.
Although I can imagine climbing into climbing onto the a bucking standard J1 and trying to hang on while they're shooting you for just a couple more takes on the pivoting mechanism. You probably feel your years on that one.
And knowing that there's a cliff below you, so there's.
Yeah. I think I would have. There wasn't much I wasn't game to do in those days, and they ended up letting me do a good deal of my own stunt work. I think it was because we had an evening on the big. We should save it really for the big Zeppelin explosion, but I guess I can tell it. I can tell it again.
We can tease it, yeah.
I can tease it. There was an evening when they almost lost their lead actor. We were on top of the big Zeppelin section that they had created out in, I think it was Valencia, not far from the orange groves, if I recall. And we had the moment in the movie when Lothar swings a big wrench and hits me in the head. There's that beautiful sort of metallic clank, and I go rolling off the Zeppelin, and then I come rocketing back up the other side. And when we rehearsed it, I sort of slow motion rehearsed the roll. He hits me, I roll. And now this is an enormous section of Zeppelin. It actually goes over the edge and goes straight down to the ground on both sides. And there's no, safety railing or anything like that. They're like, yeah, don't get too near the point of no return, or you're going to not return. And so we rehearsed the thing. And as I say, I just sort of slow motion. Okay, and here I roll over, and that's that. We go to shoot it, and he hits me, and I do the roll top speed. And when I come up from the roll, I'm on my haunches, on my butt, and I am sliding right over the side of the Zeppelin. And there's the ground, whatever, how many 40 feet below me or whatever. And I'm going faster and faster. And I guess I had my wits about me. I sort of stood up and I started pussyfooting diagonally as I was going downward. And there was a stunt mat down there. It was not in my line of travel, but as I say, I sort of sidestepped as I was going down, took off my helmet, turned around before I hit the mat, did a perfect back fall into the mat. And as I was getting up from the mat, Jim Arnett came running around the side. He was the stunt coordinator. His eyes big as dinner plates, and of course I was just like, the adrenaline was just coursing through my veins. And I said, "Bitch, I scared the poop out of you, didn't I, Jim?" And he started laughing. And I mean, I thought, they just must have thought, that's it, movie's over. Because had I not hit the stunt mat, I would have, could very well have broken both legs, or
Oh yeah, you would have been well on your way to one of those in memoriam things on the Oscars.
Yeah, yeah. So after that moment, I guess Jim thought that well, he's cool under pressure. So he started letting me do a good deal more of my own stunt work, which was fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Well, we will revisit that in a future minute. But this has been a fun minute. I love the scene, that the whole thing going on with it's really establishing you as a. Here's another question I had that I keep forgetting to ask. Would you consider the Rocketeer a superhero?
No.
He's
no,
just
absolutely not. Absolutely not. He's just a guy who finds a rocket. There's of course fuzzy territory, not with the Rocketeer. I think he's definitively not a superhero. But would you call Iron Man a superhero?
That's what I'm wondering, because I keep thinking maybe Iron Man is a superhero. I don't know. I'm not sure what the parameters are.
He's plugged that thing into his chest or whatever that is.
Yeah.
And,
right.
So he's sort of. I think of Iron Man as a superhero, but the Rocketeer is not a superhero. That universe is not one in which people have special powers.
It's interesting, because you could say the same thing about Batman, of course. And in fact, the one of the trailers for the next, it must be the Justice League movie. There's a line where somebody's asking him, "Now, what's your superpower again?" He's asking Bruce Wayne this, and his response is, "I'm rich." That's his only real power. But the difference there is he does exist in a world where there are people with powers.
Superheroes, yeah.
So,
Yeah. I guess he is a crime-fighting hero,
right?
And it's difficult to picture all the powers that a Rocketeer has, other than getting someplace fast. He can get someplace fast, and he can defeat henchmen with his head. So,
yes,
true.
He's let's see. What is your superpower, Cliff? I'm naive. I'm tenacious.
A little bit obtuse when it comes to the fair sex, perhaps.
Yeah,
I'm Jenny Blake's boyfriend.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm an idiot for strapping an engine to my back and thinking that I can make some good of it.
And thank goodness you've got Peavy there, right by your side.
That's
He's your Q
Alfred.
branch. Your Alfred, your Q.
Wow. We'll leave Cliff and Malcolm headed for a near certain doom as they're heading toward the Pioneer fuel truck, about 40 feet in the air. As we usually say, Billy Campbell will return in the near future.
I shall return.
We'll be talking some more about all the marvelous misadventures of the Rocketeer, and we'll see how he gets out of this little pickle. Actually, this would be, if this were back like the King of the Rocket Menace thing, this would be the serial act break, which don't miss another exciting episode.
That's
So
right.
we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens tomorrow.
Go to the double feature next Saturday if you want to find out what happens.
Yeah. Wow. Well, tomorrow in the real back here in the real world, or is it? Tomorrow we're going to talk with someone else who was at Santa Maria Airport and is also in the movie, just like Billy. Well, not just like Billy, but he's in there somewhere. But we'll talk with him tomorrow and I believe he's a Santa Maria native. So
Fun.
We'll check
I look
with
forward
him.
to hearing that.
Very exciting. Well, join us here. Also, if you'd like to leave some more messages to us, we can read them quite easily at Twitter. If you go to Rocketeer Minute on Twitter, you can also go to Facebook, facebook.com/Rocketeer Minute, or go to our main big site, RocketeerMinute.com. There's cool swag from Amazon. You can pick up a Blu-ray version of the Rocketeer. It doesn't have anything else on it but the Blu-ray of the Rocketeer and a trailer to the Rocketeer. Unfortunately, not a lot of.
I just find that a crime. I think that's a
Oh,
crime.
it's a sin. They should at least have the storyboards, as we were just discussing.
I agree.
But maybe they'll get the hint for the 4K version. So we'll see. But
And you can find me on Twitter at
at W.O. Campbell.
there we go.
And,
I didn't even know that, but
yeah. Go
We've got your back.
thank you.
Find Billy W.O. Campbell. Easy to remember, William Oliver Campbell. Okay, it's right out there. And actually, if you go to Rocketeer Minute, just look at all of our friends, and he's, I think, probably right at the top. He's one of our first friends. So check that out. You can find him quite easily, and he has lots of interesting things to say, especially when it concerns being on the Rocketeer. So that's another thing you might want to check out is Billy's exciting new murder mystery series on Hulu, Cardinal, available if you're in the U.S., and also on BBC 4, Channel 4 in the U.K. It's a great series. You can binge watch it right now, all 6 parts. So check that out. But please, also, if you haven't subscribed already, go to Google Play or iTunes, search for Rocketeer Minute, click subscribe, and boom, every morning you get this. You get to hear all these exciting things, different adventures going on. And please leave us a good review. Mr. Campbell has left us a wonderful review, by the way. Thank you very much.
Aw.
And
That was amazing.
Very nice of you. So please check it out. If it's good enough for Billy Campbell, you should be able to leave a nice memo too for us. Thank you.
He has his own fanfare.
Yeah.
Yeah. Much to my embarrassment.
But we'll be hearing that again shortly. But thank you again for being part here on the Rocketeer Minute, and we will see you all again tomorrow. So be here. And until then, over and out.
Over and out, boys. It's been a gas. Go get him, kid.